Whenever you're grading students, you could grade a multiple choice question very easily. Assuming the question was written well, there's only one answer. You can either mark it as being correct or incorrect. It really is a dichotomous choice, one or the other. If it's, however, something that's more subjective, like a short answer or an essay question, or their affect. An affect is how they act professionally. You'd want to have something that makes it as straightforward and with as little leeway as possible. A way to do that is to have what's known as a rubric or a scorecard. In the scorecard, it lays out beforehand for both the student and for you what you're looking for to call something an A, B, C, D, or F. For this rubric, this was one for a video assignment, and if the person used what we talked about in class as their supervisor's voice, where they project, where they show confidence, where they show they clearly are in charge, that student would receive between a 90 and a 100%. If, however, to the far other side of that scale, if the student's speech was too quiet, they were unclear, they seemed unsure, or they mumbled, that student would receive much closer to a 0% for supervisor's voice. Moving down on the scale, you can see that there are other topics that would be covered. For example, at the bottom, was the information in their presentation medically correct? If it was all medically correct with no significant errors, and they showed something innovative or cutting edge, they would receive close to 100%. On the other end, if they had some medical errors or something that really should have been in there but wasn't, that would have been closer to a 0%. EMS programs have many roles to be filled out. We're going to go through these and give you an idea what these are. These are the roles that the COA EMSP would be looking for when they come to check your accreditation standards and to see if you are providing a quality education for your program. The person who is at the very top, the program director, is where we're going to start. The program director at a COA EMSP approved school, and this is all paramedic schools that end up with a person being able to take the National Registry exam, must have at least a bachelor's degree. And that really can be a BS or BA, but it has to be at least a bachelor's degree. For more and more programs, that degree is a bachelor's degree in EMS, but there's still some where they have a bachelor's degree in something else, and they're doing a very good job. The program director is the person who is in charge of the overall direction of the program. In some places, this program director is also the chair of a department. Sometimes she or he is not. For the program director, they generally have the power to hire and fire faculty. They are the ones who officially approve any curriculum changes. They oversee the experiences of the faculty, and they are really responsible for the overall quality of what's done in the classroom, clinicals, and internship. They help to approve the clinical internship sites. They work very closely with the medical director. The program coordinator could be the same person as the program director, or there might be something different. If they are different, then the program director does more of a broad overview control of the program, so they're more big picture. The program coordinator deals with more finite detail, more specific tasks every day. The clinical coordinator is the person who works closely with hospitals and clinics to get our students in the EMS programs into those areas to practice what they need to do. For example, the typical program has the clinical director who arranges for their intubation work in a hospital. They might also have the students go through rotations in various areas of hospitals like pediatrics, geriatrics, and phlebotomy. The field coordinator works just like the clinical coordinator, except that the field coordinator probably doesn't have to do as much skills teaching as the clinical person did because the skills should have all been covered by the time you get to the field internship. But if there are skills left or that are specific to field work, they can still be covered by the field coordinator. And this is a time when students would be riding typically with ambulance services, whether it be third service, private service, fire-based, or something else. They would be in an out-of-hospital setting. For a particular course or class, there's going to be a primary instructor. This is the individual who has to be licensed or certified in an EMS area, and they must have experience in whatever the particular topic is. For example, if it's an EMS course, you need to have a person with EMS credentials as the primary instructor. If that person is teaching a course in extrication and they have no background in it, but someone else does, you really should have a different instructor teaching that extrication course. A secondary instructor really can be somebody with less specific credentials, but still has to know as much about the topic as necessary to help make the class successful. In a course like pediatrics, you might have a paramedic who's worked for a service and done a lot of neonatal transports to do the pediatric section. And the secondary instructor could be someone who is a PALS instructor but hasn't had much real-world pediatric experience. A lecturer is someone who has a clinical expertise in a topic but doesn't necessarily have EMS credentials. In that pediatric example, you could bring in a pediatric nurse or a pediatric respiratory therapist, someone that has what you specifically need for this topic, even if they don't have an EMS certificate or license. Lab instructors are typically not required to have higher academic degrees, but they are required to have clinical knowledge and expertise in the specific skill being taught and or checked off. For example, if you have a day when you're going to be doing extrication and spinal immobilization, then you'd want somebody who had experience in that area to check off the skills. Same thing for phlebotomy or airway skills. You want to be sure that they know very well how to do those skills so they can teach and or check off the students. Preceptors are a difficult area in EMS because we don't do it as well as we would like to as a profession. A couple of the issues are within the hospital setting, a lot of programs do pay for someone to be in that setting to monitor the students and help them as they're learning and practicing what they do. And this is commonplace for most, if not all, other allied health professions. For the field setting, it's unlikely you'll see a school paying field personnel to be a preceptor. Now, for some services, they help with this by offering incentives for people to be field training, either an officer or a field training preceptor. That could be some extra money. It could be some extra incentive for perquisite benefit, like at the end of the year they receive something because they did serve as a preceptor. The medical director can be a medical doctor, MD, or a doctor of osteopathy, a DO. They're exactly the same in level of knowledge and what they can do legally. They just have slightly different philosophies on the kind of medical education they received. But the medical director is a licensed physician in the state the program is in that oversees the medical content for what they do. They're the person that the educators, the clinical people, the program director reach out to assure that what they're teaching students is medically accurate and up to date. For example, if there's something that's changed relatively recently about how ERs are treating cardiac patients, we want to be sure that that information gets filtered into our classrooms to give our students what's new and not just what's been taught for the last 5 years. And if there's something in the class that you're not sure about, for example, a student brings up an article and says they just read that there's a new treatment for disorder X, is that something we should be doing in the field? One way to check it is to go look in the journals yourself and see what you think, and then bounce it off your medical director and say, hey, this is what I believe to be true based on the student's question. I looked it up. Do you agree that this should be done, or do you disagree and therefore we should not do it? A lot of programs will include some continuing education type of courses in their overall paramedic program. There are some advantages in doing this. Some of those include that the curricula themselves are set. You take an ACLS course, you open the book and all the material is there for you. You don't have to create new things. Same thing is true for courses like PHTLS and PALS. One of the potential benefits to students is that there are services that will look at those extra certifications as a benefit and could potentially pay the student more money or be more likely to hire them if they have these extra certifications. A downside for these certification courses is that some people view them as being canned courses that don't add much, if any, benefit to the overall program, and that by making the students take them, it's, in their mind, a waste of time. So each educator has to balance whether or not using these courses has more of a benefit for the student than not.